So I find it interesting that for years we've heard about the patriarchy and how it needs to be dismantled when numbers like these come back. That according to a Pew Research study, 63% of men were single while 34% of women were not. So the question is, who are these young women dating? Well, it's being said that they're either dating each other or older men. And why is that? Well, I'm not ruling out the possibility of attraction, but the obvious is that older men are financially more stable than younger men. And with the earning gap shrinking between genders, with women now earning men in some cities, one would think that this would have led to gender roles and financial expectations just going away. But if this was the case, why do we not see a large percentage of young men in a relationship with older financially stable women? Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that would settle down with a woman that made millions of dollars. I don't mind being taken out for some dinner. Well, that's because being able to financially provide is overwhelmingly viewed as a man's role by men and women in relationships. Now, in 1 out of 4 marriages, women are actually the breadwinners, and in many relationships, people split bills. Now, a round of applause for those finding success in that. I mean, that's a great thing, right? Still, stats show that 50% of marriages where the women are the breadwinners end in divorce. And women, of course, initiate divorce at a higher rate. Now, I will say that there are justifiable reasons that I've seen for women to initiate divorce. I mean, for example, men cheat more in relationships where women are breadwinners, and household responsibilities still seem to be unfairly put on the women who also have to go out and work. What I think is happening here is there's a conflict between desires from the opposite gender and societal responsibilities and expectations like having to go to work and whatnot. But on the other end, where relationships are egalitarian, desires between the genders are still pointed in the direction of what's considered traditionally masculine and feminine. There's been studies that show that women find greater satisfaction when it comes to intercourse when they see men doing more masculine chores. And what's a masculine chore? Like fixing a car versus a more feminine chore, which would be like vacuuming the floor. I mean, how often are you gonna fix a car compared to vacuuming a floor that you walk on every day? And that's just the chores part of it when it comes to intercourse. I mean, think about it. If both men and women are working long hours, I could imagine that in most cases, tired men would probably want intercourse more than a tired woman. You could check a guy's browser history to prove that. I kind of have an idea of why infidelity is happening. So yeah, egalitarian relationships are a thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no burden on a man to be a financial provider when he views his position in a relationship. And that's not to say that women don't also feel stressed when dealing with finances, but I'm talking about the actual success of the relationship to go the distance through hardships and how a person feels about themselves within a relationship. You see, money is usually attached to a man's masculinity, unfortunately. And money issues is one of the leading causes of divorces, and women are the ones mostly initiating the divorce. Financial equality seems like a reasonable expectation, but typically men don't share this strict requirement and are more likely to date down economically and also stick it out in a marriage. So by default, women wouldn't feel that same pressure from men. Giving dating patterns is as if there's a hope that things will just work out in a way where men are securing well-paying jobs so there's enough guys suitable for women to choose from. But imagine if there was a place where majority of women were breadwinners. That would mean that the 1 in 4 would have to be 3 and 4 marriages of breadwinning wives. Women would have no choice but to date down. And if there's no intention on putting a cap on a woman's progression in the workplace, then why can't this be a thing now? And we're not seeing women dating down really being a thing at the moment. And for those that are, I mean, it's not all peace and harmony. And it's not really just a woman's fault, but when people are getting into relationships, people are carrying these traditional gender expectations of each other, and women are also playing a part in that. So what is the patriarchy?
A system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family and descent is traced through the male line.
And another one.
A system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it.
Now, it's one thing to have equal power in the workplace, but in my opinion, much of what happens in society comes down to personal relationships. Now, seeing how relationships are playing out, it seems like people are either choosing the patriarchy or, in the case of the more egalitarian relationships, patriarchy light. Money typically equates to power, and if this is the requirement for men, then he's put into the position of power. And from the stats of single young men, we now see a man's earning potential as a barrier for a relationship to actually begin. In egalitarian relationships, sure, it sounds nice on paper, but what happens when it leads to lower satisfaction between both men and women who are conditioned to expect certain traditional gender roles from each other? Now, I'm not against traditional types of setups in a relationship. I think people should just do what works. I just don't like the denial that this is what people tend to go towards when it comes to dating, and men are villainized for it because it gets people nowhere. Anyways, that's it for now. If you can, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm out.